No.
Join our podcast conversations as we share ideas, insights, and information that will educate, inform, and inspire. We will blend our knowledge of online safety and emotional awareness to help you have a better understanding of your kids' online world and their emotional responses and well being.
Sarah, so great to see you again.
It is great to see you too and to hear you.
And you too. Do you know the last time we saw each other? Go, quiz.
In the summer for lunch.
Wonderful cafe. No, wonderful patio. Awesome
Mm-hmm.
meal.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in kitchen. Was it
Great
kitchen?
conversation.
Awesome conversation. The meal was good, but the conversation was amazing. So
Yes.
I can't believe how time has flied. Um, I'm glad to be back and creating another podcast with you. What's the topic, Sarah?
Is cell phone addiction really a thing? Is it really a thing? I mean, we hear throwing around, you're addicted to your cell phone. And is it really a thing?
I guess it depends who you talk to. But I'm going to read, what I thought would be interesting for the purpose of this podcast was to read
Mhm.
some actual definitions and then we can work on that. But before I read the definitions, I'm going to share with you from how many people I've heard the term cell phone addiction. Number one, countless of DMs from parents on my Facebook page asking for guidance because their child is addicted to their phone. I've heard nurses in the ER saying they have patients addicted to their devices. When they took it away for a specific reason, the way they responded, they used the word addicted. Educators across North America, therapists, massage therapists who said, Paul, I won't forget there's one lady in Markham. She said, I have one patient that comes in, can't put their phone down while they're getting massage. Social
No.
workers, yes.
I can't handle what you just said right there. I have to stop you right there. So you're getting a massage,
Yep.
but I can see if you get an emergency call or text, right? Like, oh my goodness, my kid's at school and I got to keep my phone on me just in case because the school's calling back or something.
Yep.
But to have a massage and get on your phone at the same time, that's not relaxing. Anyway, sorry, I can't even
Yeah.
visualize that. So keep going.
Well, let me give you the visual because it was given to me. So the headrest you put in, so the head's adjusted so you can actually look through,
Right.
and the phone was right below them. And it wasn't an adult; it was a teenager who came in on a regular basis, and it was a teenager. So
Oh no.
I've heard it from literally everyone. Now, is it accurate to say? Well, you know what? With all the stories I've heard and the definition that I'm about to read to you, we could attribute to it. So let's first go to the Merriam-Webster definition. And here's a definition of addiction: a compulsive, chronic, physiological, or psychological need for a habit forming substance, behavior, or activity having harmful physical, psychological, or social effects and typically causing well defined symptoms such as anxiety, irritability, tremors, or nausea upon withdrawal or abstinence. Then I found one from CAMH. Addiction is also used to explain the experience of withdrawal when a substance or behavior, example, gambling, is stopped. Example, I must be addicted to coffee. I get a headache when I don't have a cup in the morning. However, experiencing enjoyment or going through withdrawal do not in themselves mean a person has an addiction. So, based on those two, can we say that there is such a thing? Like I said, I'm not the expert in defining or basically telling someone, yes, your child is
Right.
addicted. And based on what I've just read, combined with what I hear, you could throw that into the conversation. I have used overconsumption, and overconsumption of the device can lead to certain outcomes when the device is taken away. So, are there
Mm.
strategies? Once we get to that point in the conversation, I'll talk about strategies. Have I seen it where parents are concerned? Yes. Where professionals are concerned? Yes. And you know what? I know you've seen it as well.
Absolutely. So I found a little information that I find very interesting. And it's that Google Trends say it's rising. The trend is rising to research is cell phone addiction? Like, or is cell phone, can it be an addiction? So that's a Google trend that, people are searching this. They're interested, like, can I be addicted to my cell phone? So I found that piece of information. So people are either noticing it within themselves or they're noticing it within a child and actually searching that.
That's pretty interesting. I never thought about to look I never
Mhm,
thought to look for that. That is really interesting. So people are actually self-reflecting and now asking, "Do I have an issue?" That's really
mhm.
cool.
Or does my kid or does my spouse or
Yes.
does and you know what's interesting too, and you touched on this, is when the cell phone becomes and I'm gonna word it a bit different, but a trigger for an emotion. So
Yes.
that could be, I don't have my phone, and now I'm triggered to feel, anxious, or I'm feeling sad and I'm angry that I forgot it, or can I just get over it and say, okay, I forgot my phone? Or is it becoming hindering, like, for the rest of my day
Right.
because I forgot my phone? And let's put work aside. Let's pretend, we're not talking about people who work on their phone. We're just talking about people who socialize on their phone,
Right.
because there is this conversation about young people socializing on their phone. So it's becoming hindering when they're in real life situations. And so if your main area of socialization is through your phone, think about when you forget it. It's
Right.
like triggering so many more emotions than just someone who's like, "Oh, I forgot my phone. I can use somebody else's just to give a quick call if there's an emergency, but I'm good." No, it's that the phone's so much more. It's like I have forgot my lifeline. And so that triggers way more emotions.
Let me ask you, have you ever forgot your phone? And if so, how did you respond? Because I have an answer now, because I've actually forgotten it a few times. But I'm curious as to how you respond. Now, in context, you're a mom, heavily involved with your son in school and activities. Um, Obviously, at home, you have a partner. Like all these come into play. So when I ask you, how does it impact you? You have to, I think everyone is different, right? In
Oh, for
terms of
sure.
what is their life like right now, because that can direct the response. So how do you think you would respond with, you're a mom, you run a business, you have a kid. How do you respond?
Oh, I'd be so annoyed.
Okay, but
I
annoyed you can get
is
over.
exactly. So that's what I would be. I would be annoyed and I'd be
Okay.
frustrated that I forgot it.
Okay.
Uh, but I could move through whatever it is. I could, phone and say my husband, you know what, if you're trying to get hold of me, I forgot my phone. I'm using somebody else's phone. Actually, that has happened to me before.
Okay.
I forgot my phone and I used somebody at my gym's phone to phone him to say, just in case I have errands to run, I won't be available. But I was annoyed I forgot it, but it didn't wreck the rest of my day.
See, okay, so you can deal with it, and I'm in the same boat. I have forgotten my device at home. And one of the stories I tell kids when I travel and I do business, I have 4 smartphones. I tell them I can't get into why, but although I have technology because of what I do and the projects I do, if I were ever to leave without my primary device, it does not turn my day upside down. I'm not talking about the other devices that are used for business and for projects. I've actually left the home on a Saturday where I wouldn't carry all my devices with me without my primary device, which is for my family to get in touch with me or an email from obviously a principal that we deal with. It does not bother me in the bit. I will get upset myself think, how did I forget that? Am I losing my mind? But you know what? I continue driving and I'll continue
Right.
doing my errands. And I know that if my family tries to call me, guess what? The phone will ring at home. They're like, Dad forgot his phone. It does not disrupt my day. It doesn't throw me off. It basically makes you question, how did I forget that? Because you're so
Mhm.
used to taking with you. But I do not stop, turn around. Of course, if I'm going on a really long drive, yes, I may be forced to turn back and grab it because I'm using Google Maps or something else. But does it disrupt me? Absolutely not. In fact, one of the things I tell, every time I speak to students is disconnect. It's okay. It's therapeutic. It,
Well, one
um,
you hit the nail on the head. One time I forgot my phone and I was annoyed, but I felt really good because I disconnected from my phone. That's why I'm springboarding off what you just said, and I
mhm,
connected to what the real life situation was. Like, I was
right.
more mindfully in the moment. So forgetting my phone became a gift. But if I would have got so caught up in the emotions around forgetting my phone, I wouldn't have been able to focus and be present for the rest of the time.
Okay, so now having said that, so that's the trigger. You forgot it. It could disrupt your drive. You might make some poor choices because your mind is always on it. Does that go down the path of, I think I'm addicted or I think I'm dependent on this device? I
Mm,
think it goes down the path of I'm way too dependent on it.
yes.
And I think we have to
Mhm,
become less dependent. We have to become more self sufficient without
right.
always the need of that convenience. Like my daughter sent me a joke not too long ago and she said, Dad, when you tell me to go somewhere, give me the address because I'm the type of that guy that would say, okay, when you're going down this street, hang a left and go south. And Dad, don't say any of that. Just give me the directions. And I said, what happens? Sorry, give me the address. What happens when your phone dies? You forget it. Do you know north, south, east, west? You know the name of the street? Do you know what going right and going south and going north is? And we had a really deep conversation because I
Okay.
can. I
I love
absolutely can.
that you're even saying this. You know why I love that you're saying this? My dad used to talk to me all the time about north, south, east, and west. And I said to him one day, and this is in high school, I said, Dad, I don't know. You know what? He's like, what are they teaching you in school? If you don't know north, south, east, and west, like never eat shredded wheat. I'm like, yeah, but I don't. He was just like, this needs to
Yeah.
be basic knowledge.
Okay. But okay. So now with that basic knowledge is why I'm not disheveled. So I
Mm.
can make it the point, and in the back of my mind, okay, emails coming in, I'll get to them. But I'm a person who everyone who deals with me knows, and Sarah, I know you got to know me for doing this, and I don't do it intentionally, but you know that I don't respond right away. If I'm not looking at my phone, I don't know that Sarah Westbrook is texting. So for those listening, Sarah can text me, she can DM me on Twitter, she can email me. Like she has a lot of ways to get in touch with me, and I with her. But I think she got to know after, well, he doesn't respond right away.
No,
That's
you don't. And actually, that's another podcast that we need to
okay.
bring up
Paul Davis
is
does not
my
respond
frustration.
right away. And I'm frustrated with him because that annoys me.
He's
But it's not,
he's ignoring me.
no, and that's the thing. I'm not. But everyone who gets to know me says,
Yeah.
okay, if he's not, there's a reason. Perhaps he didn't
Yes.
get the notification. Perhaps he's doing a presentation. Perhaps he's spending time with his family. So when people get to know that of you, and there are many things that come in that are very, very important, which we can get to. But in my life, it's I will get to it. I promise I'll be respectful and get to it. It's just not going to happen instantaneously. When I'm driving, and if you text me, Sarah, I'm not responding until I get to a full complete stop. I look at my device. Oh, Sarah has texted me. But if I leave without it, people will know. You don't know I've left without it, obviously. But my whole point is that it does not dishevel my day. So when I look at myself and how I use, and I have so much, and I'm privileged to have so much technology, it does not dominate my life. I can disconnect. I disconnect when I go on vacation with my family. I don't check social media. I don't pick up my device. And if I can discipline myself to do it, I know we all can. And the reason I say
Mhm.
that is because I don't know if you noticed on one of my Facebook postings, I made an observation weeks ago of a group of teenagers that were
Mhm.
communicating with each other. I believe it was in a mall. And the number of times they went to their phones, there was nothing there. It was strictly a habit. Pick it up, nothing there, go back to talking. Still talking, pick it up, go there. It's almost a compulsive what's happening. Let it go. Your human friends are in front of you. Respect them, appreciate them. But that tells me perhaps that's an okay, might not be overconsumption, but definitely going down the path of an addiction that you have to check that device on
Mhm.
a regular basis, even though the people you're talking to are right in front of you.
Well, I think too, this could be an interesting bit of research. But for example, if you're out at a restaurant with your spouse and they're on their phone and it's not maybe it's maybe there are times where it's like, oh, I'll quickly look that up for you, or let me check that email. It's like it's part of the conversation. But
Mhm.
I'm talking about not when it's part of the conversation, they're just on their phone and it's distracting them. We have to look at, okay, so how's the other person feel? So I would say people around our age and older would feel as though, well, you're distracted. Like we're here together. Whereas I'd say that age group, teenagers, they're all doing it. So no one's taking it personal. So there's no reason to second guess your choice because you're like, we're all checking our phones, we're all checking our Snap, we're all checking our. So that would be an interesting shift in how it is perceived. How it's perceived, I believe, with the older age groups is very different than how it's perceived in preteen, teens, maybe even young 20s. And I wanted to bring up something that you mentioned. You said they were checking their phone and you
Mhm,
had noticed like there was no like alert that they needed to check.
mhm.
So I found these three points that I'm going to share with you pretty interesting. I think people will find it. So it's called phantom vibrations, which is feeling that your phone is alerting you, but it's not. So you either feel it or maybe you hear a ding, but you check it and there's nothing there.
I have to write
Raise
that
your
down,
hand if you've
Sarah.
ever had that happen. I literally have had that happen, Paul. I have I have had that happen. So that's something for me to be aware of. I've like heard the ding and I'm like, no, that wasn't my phone. And
So
okay,
the
this is
term, just
another
to
one.
interrupt you, sorry, it's called phantom vibrations.
Yes. It might
You
have been a little bit longer than that,
okay?
but I kind of
I'm
short
looking it
form
up.
it. Phantom vibrations. Okay. The other one was, and I could be pronouncing this wrong, but textophrenia, which is fear you can't send or receive texts.
I've never heard of that.
Textophrenia. Okay, so these might
Okay,
not be real things, but this is what I found. Okay, this is
okay,
what I found in an article.
okay.
So everyone can do their own research, but these were okay. There's one more, and it's called nomophobia, fear of going without your phone. Like, so you don't have your phone.
So
Nomophobia.
I can subscribe to that one. I absolutely subscribe to the first one, although I've never really heard it. But yes, I've heard it in context that people have done that. The second one, the fear of not being able to send or receive a text, that that's deep because that tells me there's something. Look, we can use devices in cases of emergencies. We can dial 911, but how bad must it be that you are fearful of not being able to send or receive a text? Because I mean, let's just be honest. Depending on, and you and I travel. There are parts of our province you don't get reception very well, so you might
Mhm.
not be getting um, texts. You might get the unable to send right now until a better connection. Right? Uh, I'm okay with that, but I understand that it doesn't impact me. But the fact that that is actually a term is concerning.
Well, I wonder if it goes back to, so if we look at the emotions attached to, so if I get a text from somebody
Hmm.
and it's a text I'm really excited about, maybe I've been invited somewhere. So now it creates that happiness within me, like, oh, I'm getting this. And if I think I might have got that text, but my phone's not receiving text, now I might feel anxious about the possibility of not getting the text that says I'm invited to that thing. So really it's the emotions that's caught up in this whole tangled of your phone. It's become this social emotional piece.
But I think we have to go back to the whole premise of texting. Texting was a simplified form of communication between one party and another to get a brief point across. So you don't use texting like social media to write a long post. You're not writing a book, although I know someone who speaks into her phone and will speak, and literally there's a paragraph coming in. A text, especially when you and I communicate, is very specific. Hey,
Wait till you see my
podcast.
text sheet after this.
Oh boy, it'll come in different parts. So I'm not looking when if a text comes in, it's usually a specific request. It can be business related. It could be, hey, we need to speak about something, but it's not a paragraph. I don't seek validation. I'm not looking for does the world care about me? It is a form of communication that's replaced
See, okay,
a
you've
phone
hit the
call.
nail on the head. You've hit the nail right now on the head. It's not your version of validation.
Right.
So and like we said, we're not scientists around this research, but there that research has been done about dopamine. That's that excite, you're happy, you're joyful, and that's released when get a text or you see all those likes on Instagram or TikTok, and
Right.
that fuels you because it's part of your validation. Oh my goodness, people like me. So I think what it comes down to is really being mindfully aware that your cell phone and your social media can't be part of your self-esteem and your self-worth.
Yeah, like, exactly.
And teaching our kids that and modeling that to our kids. And it's easy to get caught up in it. Even and I know that even for myself as an adult, knowing information, but saying, "Oh, oh, you really liked that post?" Now, it's one thing to look at information and say, "Okay, on a business level, people liked that post, they must like that content. Okay, I'll do more of that." But to then actually attach it to your self-worth becomes a very dangerous, slippery slope, especially as a teen. Because we know, and you've seen this many times, where people type out of emotions, right? And they impact people's social media and their posts. And if I receive that negative post and I make it about my belief of myself, well, now that's impacting not only my self-worth, but my emotional state, more
Hmm.
anxious, even lead to depression. I mean, that, really mindfully teaching our kids that this is not part of your self-worth. And that comes with a lot of boundaries and information.
I have a saying that I posted many, many years ago, which is, don't define your self worth based on the number of likes and followers you have.
Mhm.
You're better than that.
Mm,
You're, you know, and when I posted that, the reason I created that was back in 2017. I just can't remember the month. I was walking into a high school, and I always ask the principals at the beginning, okay, what am I dealing with? What are you dealing with? That I can slip into the presentation, address it, without being specific. He said, Paul, one of the most unique things that's ever happened is a grade 9 student had walked into his office and was beyond distraught. And the reason? Because something that this student had posted did not get an expected amount of likes in an expected amount of time. And I looked at him, he looked at me, he said, that's one of the issues. And I thought to myself, not only are you expecting amount of likes, you've given a time frame. And if it hasn't met that, you're distraught. 2017. And I think that's sad because,
and
go ahead,
no, keep going.
because that kid, and I'll never forget, grade 9, has 4 more years ahead of them in high school where we have to try and make that person a better human being, knowing that what they do, like you always said, Sarah, is good enough. You
Mhm,
don't have to be there to impress anybody else. Your status is not based on the amount of likes and the amount of sorry, and the time you get those likes. But for that
mhm,
child to go and open up, which, I'm glad they did, because obviously they got some counseling after that. I find that sad because that's not how our world revolves. I
mhm,
know you and I are on social media, but we run businesses and we
mhm.
can gauge what our audience for adults may want to see, or for students. Now, if something doesn't get a like, I don't get upset. If something gets 1,000 likes, okay, I don't sit back and say, wow, that's amazing. It's great that it had impact, but it does not ever, ever emotionally connect with me. Never.
Mhm.
And I promise you, it never will.
So it's interesting too to go back to that story you just shared about the student who said they didn't get this many likes in this amount of time. One thing I would ask that student, and this is hopefully going to be helpful for a parent, guardian, or educator listening, or anyone who works with kids, take a piece of paper, have the child write out what happened. So in this case, it would be what happened was I did a post, it didn't get enough likes in this amount of time. Okay, so
Right.
that's just facts. That's what happened. Then I'd have them on the other side of the piece of paper write out, what am I making that mean? What story am I telling myself about that? What thought am I saying to myself about what happened? Because this will give you insight. Because then the student or the child could say, I'm making it mean, and the story I'm creating, however you want to word it, you know this, the person you're speaking with best, is that I'm not good enough and nobody likes me. Or they could say, I'm making it mean that the content that I'm developing is not what people vibe with, or I'm
Right.
making it mean like, and they can keep going. But what is interesting is not just asking them what happened, but what story are you creating about what happened? Because that's going to tell you their perspective of what happened. And if they're making it, if they're doing anything that, or creating, sorry, any kind of story in their head that makes them less than because of not getting enough likes, you're going to instantly know that it's directly impacting their self esteem, their self work, maybe even their identity. And then you can go into deeper and say, okay, so what emotion does that trigger for you?
Right.
If the child's like, I don't know, show them a sheet of emotions. I mean, email me, I'll send you one. Have them point. Well, I start to feel embarrassed, or I start to feel anxious, or I start to get sad or angry. Okay, so now we need to look at helping the child work through the emotion that has been triggered within their body, in their brain. Okay, so now we're okay, okay, so you're feeling angry about. Okay, so we're gonna move through that, whatever that is. If it's deep breathing, writing, and then we're gonna ask them, what's a different story you could create about what happened?
Right.
Well, I could say, maybe no one saw it within that time frame, and it has nothing, it's not about the content, it's about the timing. Or maybe I could make it mean that I can do something different with my time and I'm still enough as a person, even if I don't get as many likes.
Right.
And what they start to see is through this exercise that they can shift their mindset by shifting how they perceive a circumstance, what they tell themselves about something that happened. And what you tell yourself impacts your emotional state. So this goes back to, uh, is cell phone really an addiction? Is it really an addiction, or is it about that, there's boundaries that we can set, and there's an emotional attachment that's happening when those boundaries aren't set, and there's a conversation in their brain that's happening, and so maybe that's the addiction. Maybe it's the emotional state that's the addiction.
And
I don't
that's why I
know, that
want to,
just brings in something, doesn't it?
yeah, and I want to bring it back to that because I thought, okay, um, if the individual didn't feel the need to have to pick up the device and post something because whatever triggered, perhaps it could have been a better day because this occurred in the school. It could
Right.
have been a better day, but the individual felt the need to pick up the device, take a picture, make a post, make a comment, and maybe there was that connection. So I
Mhm.
agree with you when it comes to smartphone usage. Number one, self-regulate and set
Mhm.
boundaries. Number two, turn off all social media notifications.
Mhm.
If you want to look at your phone less, turn off all notifications. I even say
Mhm.
that to kids. Go to your phone when you have the chance. Don't have your phone lure you to it because of that blinking light.
Mhm.
Last month, no, we're still actually in October technically. This month, I started the no notification challenge.
Mhm.
For schools, I want to adopt it. I said 1 week, turn off all notifications, except, of course, if it's a text message from your parents, someone important. But every social media platform, disable. Every text platform, unless, of course, emergencies, disable. Go to it when you have the opportunity. Don't have it bring you. And I think that can help with regulation. And number
Yes.
three, do what I do, which is let everyone know you will get back to them because you care so much, but it just may not be instantaneously. And
Mhm.
then, do we have to have this conversation about Is it an addiction? Possibly not, because then the phone will become what it was meant to be, a communication tool, a convenience for communication other than making a phone call. Perhaps it's text messaging, posting something to share about our lives. It is a tool, but we should not be dependent on it. And I think we've gone down the path of dependency, where in some cases, because the net result is as defined by the dictionary term, there's a physical response to it, then yes, you can classify that as an addiction. But we can avoid that. We can avoid it completely. How?
Hmm.
Self regulation. And that's up to us. Now, let's just be honest, kids don't have that. So we have a responsibility as parents to make sure it happens. And once they fall into that regulatory state, they'll be better off for it. But remember, they
Hmm.
may fall back into, always going to it because their surroundings are doing it. But then we
Hmm.
have to help them back. So we cannot expect kids to do it. And number two, and then this is where we're going to have to kind of wrap it up, we have to model the same behavior that we expect our kids. So, how about we
Hmm.
as parents put down our devices? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they don't exist because remember, someone once told me your phone at the table tells the other parties that that device is more important than they are. So let's
Oh, I like
model.
that. I like that.
Yeah, I say that sometimes. I get looks from parents because they're doing it, but I'm being honest with them, right? Because
Mhm.
think about how the other person feels.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
we have
No,
we
it's
have to
something to
model that
be
behavior.
mindful of.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and if we do that, you know what? Our devices, which are amazing, which I love, won't dominate our lives. That's the whole objective of this conversation is making sure that they don't dominate our lives. And there's more to than checking someone's Instagram post, always checking, you know, I'm going to look that up. The phantom vibration, where you're at a point where you think it happened. This is fascinating to me,
Yeah.
where you think it happened and it really didn't.
But it didn't.
Because,
But it didn't happen. No, and I love that whole idea is your phone controlling you or are you
yeah,
controlling your phone?
yeah.
That's great. And as we end, I just want to say, and this is me being completely honest. The other night, went on my Instagram just to check a few things. Didn't even realize I'd been on there 25, 30 minutes. For me, it literally felt like 8 minutes. My husband's like, Sarah, what are you doing? And I thought I was just quickly checking a video. He's like, it's been like 25 minutes, 30 minutes. It That can happen too. So allowing somebody else to also hold you accountable and then you can say, oh my gosh, I totally didn't even realize that was on me. That if I'm putting it down now. If I could go back in time, I'd do it different. Can't go back in time. So next time I'm going to set a timer because you can get in a quick rabbit hole. It can take up a
Actually,
lot
can I
of time.
help you
So I
with that
think
really
setting a
quickly?
timer,
Let me help with
please.
that really
Yes.
quickly. On Instagram, there's a
Yeah.
feature called daily time limit.
Okay.
So you want to set 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes. Once it comes up, you hit on OK. It doesn't kick you off of Instagram. It tells you, Sarah, you've been on for 15 minutes. So my Instagram timer is set for 15. Once 15 minutes comes up, I get the notification. I click on OK. I am off of Instagram for the day. 15 minutes a
Okay.
day maximum. It's in the settings, and it was put in there because years ago Instagram was called by someone in Congress an addictive product. So they very quietly slid in this feature, and it works, but it's not. It doesn't kick you off. It's a discipline. So remember, I told you we have to self-regulate. So when that notification comes up, you have to say, "I'm done. Goodbye." And the best part
Yeah.
is, then you can go back at the end of the week and analyze how much time you spent each and every day on the platform. That could be a different podcast, but that can help you out when it comes to the self-regulation of your device and social media.
Right, the time management, because it
Exactly.
can they right, it can just spiral down, or you're getting back to people. Like I find I get caught up in the DMs, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm just getting back to. I'll just do this other one really quick, and then that. But yes, no, these are all great reminders, and I think in closing, remembering that those notifications, those interactions are not, and reminding our kids are not part of your self worth.
Hmm.
They are ways to communicate. Yes, they are ways to interact. But if your cell phone dies, if you forget your charger and the battery, right? You can that it's going to be okay.
It is.
Mhm.
Take it from a tech guy. It's going to be okay. We can get through without it. Sarah, I can't wait for our next conversation.
I can't wait either. And until next time, this is what we know.
This is all we know.
Is it? Oh shoot.
No, no, we know a bit more. We're parents
Wait.
too. I'm a dad.
Yeah,
You're a
yeah,
mom. We've got some expertise in that. Okay,
yeah.
we'll wrap it
Come
up.
back for the next podcast. We're gonna figure out some more things we know to share with you.
See you then.
See you then.